Hi, this is Robert at XI Computer. We are introducing today our latest version of our XI MTower PCIe workstation based on the second generation Intel Core i7 3930K. The 3930K is an unlock CPU, and we are clocking it at 4.5 gigahertz on a water cooling sealed system. Let's take a look at how we manage this build. At the beginning, we can notice on the case is the newest Cooler Master Storm series, is called the Storm Trooper. From the top, this case has some new interesting technological advances. You notice a big button, the power button. Down below it, you have two buttons on the side for increasing or decreasing the speed of the fans according to the ambient temperature. Down below you see 4 USB ports, of which the two outermost are USB 3.0 and the center one are USB 2.0. There is an eSATA on the right, a mic in, and a headset out up on top. Cooler Master introduced this new so-called X dock. You can slot in and out, out swap SSD drives, so it allows a very fast and a huge amount of data be transferred from the hard drives inside to the SSDs. The case has 9 5.25 open bays, of which we populated 2 with a Blu-ray writer and a DVD writer. The third slot has a 3.5 adapter with a 75-in-1 flash card reader that's very useful for transferring data from different video cameras or photo cameras. It also acts as a little hub. It has 3 USB 2.0, a DC out, and an eSATA interface additional. Case of ample ventilation. You notice, you guys can note the gridded base in the front. There's a big grid on the left-hand side to cool both the drives and the motherboard. A little smaller one on the right also is present for the drives. There is a handle for easy transportation at the top, as well gridding on the top for exhausting heat on the hub. Monitor of choice, this is an interesting one, is a LED from Samsung, the SA850. Is 2550 by 4400 resolution, so like more than 50% more than the full HD 1920 by 1080 standard resolution on the run-of-the-mill monitors. Monitors have very interesting features. It's very thin, is around 1 inch thin LED. As an eco mode that with a sensor, light sensor that will adjust, keep the contrast ratio constant according to ambient light. So if it's less light, the monitor will consume less power. And then also has full tilt, swivel, rotate, up and down features. So it's very professional monitor for the professional user. Okay, let's now open the case, and we're going to look inside how we build. Thank you. The case is open, and the first thing that we notice, of course, is the water cooling system. That is a necessity for overclocking this new generation Core i7 3930K, as well the 3960X. That we support at the same speed of 4.5 gigahertz on the water cooling. The water cooler is a Corsair H100. Is high efficiency, high performance water cooling, and is supported by a double width radiator up on top with 2 exhaust fans 12 centimeter for maximum thermal conveyance. On the side of the CPU, we have 2 banks actually divided in 4 channels for a total of 64 gigabyte of DDR3 1866. This is the first CPU to support as a single processor 64 gigabyte of RAM at such a high speed. The motherboard of choice is the Asus P9X79 Deluxe. Has ample variety of USB 2.0 and 3.0, Bluetooth, SATA 6 gig and SATA 3 gig, eSATA and power eSATA, and has a triple channel SLI 16X. The video board of choice here is the EVGA classified 580, is a 3 gigabyte video RAM. Power supply is a Cooler Master Silent Pro Gold 1200 watt power supply. It's high efficiency, so the gold label rated at equal or better than 90%. On the hard drives, we choose this time a configuration with 2 terabyte 7200 SATA 6 gig from Western Digital, and then we use this SSD caching with a 120 gig SSD 4.3 from Corsair, and this is a new feature of those ASUS motherboards that allows to use an SSD drive of smaller capacity and implement a dynamic caching of the hard drive. We'll see later how this performs in the real world compared to a true SSD, a rated SSD, or a single drive. That's about it for the inside of the case. We're gonna now take a look at the performance of this box. Now we are taking a look at the performance of this build, and in order to do so we are using this Cinebench release 11.5 benchmark. This has a good significance both in the CPU performance with a tile rendering algorithm and on the video performance with a scene, a movie scene. We can see that at the CPU level, this build is performing at the top of our rank, even better than some Xeon, the W5590 is down around 15%, roughly less powerful than this. For the video performance also, this 580 classified performs at the top with an OpenGL mark of 65.37 frames per second. We also tested the Quadro 4000, and of course the CPU mark is the same, and the video mark is slightly lower, even though with the help of the strength of the CPU, the video mark still shows above some other testing we did with Fire Pro V8750 and even with a Quadro 5800 FX old model. Of course, was using lesser CPUs. Here we go, the same Quadro 5000, and the gain is scored quite high, an 81.67 frames per second using this CPU. So we got a top mark there, of course, at the price. And on this one here, we have the CPU mark is still the same, and the mark is 81.67 for the OpenGL on the Quadro 5000. Now here we did an interesting twist to verify how much weight is the hyperthreading of Intel. And it does have quite a bit on the rendering algorithm, quite a bit of weight. This CPU is a 6-core with hyperthread disabled, performs at 10.86 on the CPU mark, and that is around roughly 30% below the mark, the score that we have with the hyperthread enabled. So the hyperthread is a real advantage. Talking about the SSD caching, we have here a Dismark benchmark, is a performance test 7.0, and that is also quite interesting. If you're looking at a random seek for read and write, we are comparing the 2 terabyte is a SATA 6 gig, is a Western Digital, 7200 RPM with no caching, no SSD caching. And then the same with the SSD caching. And the difference is almost irrelevant, is a 6.1 and 6.2. Then we also tested with one single solid-state drive, Corsair SATA 6 gig, 4-3 drive, and the performance of the read and read and write goes to 432.4, so it's a huge advantage. And even with two drives in RAID 0 SSDs, the performance go up to over 800, so it's double. And this is a good. It approaches the theoretical double throughput of a RAID 0 configuration. There's a better scenario, of course, in the sequential write and sequential read. Sequential read are actually pretty much predictable. This is a non-caching as SATA drive. With the caching, we have almost twice as much performance, but still not as good as one SSD drive, and again approaching twice as more of a single SSD drive, the performance of a RAID 0 with two drives SSD, 463 versus 922. Kind of disappointing numbers here for the write. The SSD caching doesn't really help on the write, so the cache SSD does not help on the write. Probably there is a overhead of the controller that is seen here. The bare SATA drives performs slightly better than the cache drive. Of course, the SSD alone performs at 242, and that's pretty much the theoretical level for that. Surprisingly, the RAID 0 of two SSD drives does not perform as good as a single drive, again for reason of overhead and think of that tenure. So the overall result of the Bismarck, of course, gives the SSD caching a little bit of respect. It's definitely an advantage versus the bare drive. If you guys want pure performance on the disk, though, a pure SSD build is the way to go. On this side here, the CPU-Z is showing how the configuration of the CPU, the voltages and stuff here. We got 12 megabyte of cache plus some secondary cache here. And the actual clock speed of this video is at almost 4.6 giga, just to show that there's a little bit of headroom beyond the 4.5 gigahertz. That is a commercially available configuration, so we are very pleased about the way the CPU can perform and overclock. Here you guys can see the RAM, the 64 gig, and the clock. Here, of course, this is half of what is 1866, being a DDR RAM. Here's for the video card, and here we can see the specs of the motherboard. We also included this CPU ID that give us the temperatures, operating temperature, and we like those. And the cooler is doing a great job of keeping the heat inside at the minimum due to those exhaust fans that are managing the radiator. So this is overall is a very powerful box, and with great performance and great scalability. Is all that for this build. You guys can visit us at xicomputer.com website for the latest and greatest pricing and availability. Thank you very much.